I'm Tass Mellis of The Starters.
This is Ben Golliver with the Open Floor Podcast.
Hi, I'm Kristen Ludlow from NBA Inside Stuff.
I'm OG Anunoby of the Toronto Raptors.
Hey, I'm Elena Deladon, and welcome to the Double Clutch.
Double Clutch.
Double Clutch. Double Clutch.
Double Clutch Podcast.
Hello, welcome back to the Double Clutch NBA Podcast. I'm Matthew Wellington, one of your usual hosts. I'm joined tonight by my sidekick, my other duo. We've got Mike Miller.
Hello. I'm the sidekick.
You're the sidekick. It's the theme of duos today because of the Kawhi Leonard and Paul George news.
Wait, what? No.
What do you mean, wait, what?
I'm kidding. Of course I know what's happening.
I know you live in Kent, but you're not that disconnected from the internet.
You live in Norfolk. Come on now. That's
True,
way more backwards than Kent.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Anyway, how's your week been since we last podcasted with Mr. Oppenheim?
That's been a week already, hasn't it? Yeah, it was crazy busy, but all good.
All good, fabulous. Well, we got through 4th of July without any real fireworks in the NBA, but then we ended up Saturday. Was it Saturday morning our time?
It was. I was up at 6 doing some overtime at my PC, and then at 7 o'clock my phone just started going boom, 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 boom.
And everything went off.
Yeah.
So I woke up definitely not at 6 o'clock.
Well, I was up before then. I was at the PC at 6. It was brutal, but
I woke up and just looked at my phone. It was like 22 notifications from Bleacher Report. I was like, all right. And it was all Kawhi Leonard, all Paul George. And yeah, by that time, I think it was pretty much confirmed. But I imagine if you were up at the time, it was all breaking. It was getting a little bit confusing as to what was and wasn't happening. There's been a lot of players and ex-players interviewed the last couple of days and talking about the move and saying that when they heard it had broke, they didn't really think it was like a legit thing. Damian Lillard's come out and said he didn't think it was happening and that somebody got it wrong, because the last 2 weeks have been people photoshopping players in different jerseys and making up all kinds of rubbish, haven't they? So
what amazed me out of this whole situation is that no one knew what was going on until it happened. Whereas every other situation, it's people know what's going on.
Yeah,
like
free agency
early.
Wasn't really a surprise this year. Everything was broke, early by Woj or Shams or somebody.
Well, I just want to know who's leaking all these things. Is it the teams leaking it? Is it the players? Is it the agents? And then Kawhi's just, not telling anyone anything until he makes the move.
Well, I read somewhere earlier on that Kawhi wasn't happy when Magic had leaked some stuff that he'd discussed with him, and that was like another reason to not pick the Lakers. But I think Kawhi's camp had it all kind of under control. I think there was a little bit of worry from the Clippers towards the end because they obviously had to push the Paul George deal over the finishing line just to get the star man of the moment. Mm-hmm. And they pulled it off in the end, and it's just an absolute monster haul of picks. So the Clippers are sending the Thunder their unprotected 2022 pick, a 2024 pick, and 2026 picks, 2021, and a protected 2023 first-round pick via the Miami Heat, and then the rights to pick swaps with the Clippers in 2023 and 2025, which is basically your next 6 years of your franchise's future, plus Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who really was a standout this year, a great young player, probably going to be a superstar at some point in his career, and Danilo Gallinari, obviously a really good player. Had a pretty up and down season again, but his career's just been full of injuries, unfortunately. But when he plays, he is he's a solid role player. So
he's beyond that. He's a borderline all-star when he's healthy.
Yeah, but he's not healthy that much, so you can't really rely on him. But he goes to the Thunder. They go to the Thunder, and then the Clippers get back Paul George, which was apparently the key to getting Kawhi Leonard. And the rest, as I say, was history. And it was a move that kind of now makes the Lakers haul for, or the Pelicans haul, for Anthony Davis not look as bad. But both the LA teams have just gone all in this summer, like committed everything to grabbing stars, and it's just been complete chaos. Like Los Angeles has suddenly just become the place for basketball the next season.
It's the biggest market in the league, isn't it? Well, I suppose New York is, but we don't talk about them. It's just everyone wants to play in LA. The opportunities are there. They've got the Lakers with their history, the Clippers. back in the day, jumped in on LA because it was such a buzzing scene, and the previous owner, who I won't mention to give him any sort of reference, was jealous of Jerry Buss, and that's why he wanted to be in LA. It's just, LA is a place to be, and if you're a multimillionaire athlete, then what more, could you ask for a city in terms of fun and opportunity? It's it gives you the lifestyle that you want.
Yeah, and both the guys are from Los Angeles. Well, they're from the Los Angeles area, so they had connections there. That's why I kind of think that some of the Raptors fans that you've seen on Twitter have been quite vocal about, it's not fair that he's left. Well,
get over it.
He's just gone home, really, and most people would make that decision in their working life to do the same thing as well.
Did he want to go to Toronto in the first place? No.
That
was reported at the time. Did he kick up a fuss, or did he go out there, be a professional and play without moaning at all? Yes. Did he win you your only championship in franchise history? Yes. What do you want from him? Leave him alone.
It's the same with Paul George, though. I mean, he didn't want to go to Oklahoma. I think he made that perfectly clear, and,
Yeah, but then he re-upped and took the money. So that's the difference. Kawhi left for a smaller deal. Paul George stayed.
But at that time, that was the correct decision for him to make, because we'll get onto it in a minute, because there's this thing at the moment where players just don't want to play with LeBron. Like, there's a certain generation of players in this league that just do not want to play with or be, the guy next to LeBron. Anthony Davis is different because they share the same agency and there's a lot of connections there. And I think AD kind of grew up idolizing LeBron. So there's just an instant chemistry there. But Kawhi and Paul George and these other guys, I don't think they have the same sort of connection to LeBron that Davis has. So
I see the argument, but I don't 100% agree with it, because based on the reports that have been coming out, the fact Kawhi is now a Clipper came down to the thinnest of margins. And there was, right up until the sort of the 11th hour, he was still with the Lakers. I don't get that he U-turned because he didn't want to play with LeBron.
Well, that's where the reporting lines are all merged at the moment, because I've read completely opposite, that the Lakers were never really on the cards, and that was totally against what Kawhi Leonard wanted to do. He always wanted to be in LA, but it wasn't necessarily with the Lakers. The Clippers, this is part of a year-long pursuit for them. They sent somebody to every single Raptors game last season to keep an eye on Kawhi, which sounds a bit creepy.
Also sounds a lot like tampering.
It does, but the NBA doesn't seem to care at the moment. There's been all kinds of tampering the last few weeks with everybody, and
the acquisition of Paul George, the fact that Kawhi approached him, that's tampering. Yeah. I don't understand it. That you can find
Kawhi's
Magic.
Approached everybody in the last 2 weeks, apparently.
Yeah. So they find Magic last year, or was it the year before?
When he went on Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, for tampering, and then they can't. These things are all being. I suppose you have to evidence versus it being reporting. The evidence is there if it's on Jimmy Kimmel, but if it's something someone else has reported, it's not concrete evidence. But wow, there is a serious tampering problem going on.
Yeah, it's player power. I mean, we're basically the plan for the show is to go through a couple of questions and to build our conversation around those questions, because at the moment everyone's just doing the generic Kawhi Leonard 40-minute discussion. But I thought we'd spruce it up a little bit. So I mean, the first point to get around to is there an overriding lesson that we can learn from Kawhi's decision? Like, what does it tell us about the state of the league at the moment? What does this tell us about the era that we're in at the moment with player power? I mean, I think the first thing that sticks out to me is just the fact that, certainly with the Durant move, which we mentioned last week, and the Kyrie Irving move as well, like, that was obviously something that had been planned, but it speaks to the dysfunction that's going on in some of the bigger franchises in the league at the moment, the Knicks and the Lakers in particular. They're not appealing to players because of what's going on behind the scenes. And I think you add to that in LA because you've got the Lakers, they are the talk of that city all the time, no matter who's playing for them. Now LeBron's there, and LeBron's got his fingers in all the pie, so to speak. Like, you can't get away from any bad news, and he will leak stuff when he feels like he needs to leak stuff. And I think a lot of players realize that, if you did anything wrong and you were a teammate of him, then you're going to end up looking bad for it, even if it isn't necessarily something that you should take that much fault for. But I think it speaks volumes that that these guys have decided to go with, like, you know, the Nets and the Lake and the Clippers, because they're the, you know, the smaller brothers of the bigger franchises in those cities. And it just speaks volumes that Jerry West has come into this organization in LA, turned the Clippers around completely, and they've got a great owner there. Doc Rivers has done a fantastic job. Like, they've been really, really smart with the way they've done this. And it's the same with Sean Marks over in Brooklyn that we discussed last week with Jamie. Like, they've got the right people in the right positions in the right jobs to get the players they need to get. And you're banking on sort of 3 or 4 years with these two, I think, now. Both in their late 20s, both have a history of injury problems. Paul George has recently had his shoulder surgically repaired, and Kawhi obviously spent most last season under load management. But at the end of the day, if you've got the players around them to counteract that, then you're laughing. And I think that's exactly what the Clippers have done with their potential starting lineup at the moment. When you look at bringing back Patrick Beverley, Mo Harkless was a really nice get for them from the Blazers, and then Zubac, who's probably going to be the starting five for them, was a steal when they took him from the Lakers last year. And now you just kind of slot Kawhi and Paul George into that team, and there it is. You've already got I think they are currently the favourites to win the title at the moment, according to Westgate Sportsbook. So it's crazy how that's changed in the space of 3 days.
Yeah, it is. Player power is rife right now. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Player power.
Player power. I think the question at the top was, what lessons can we take away from this? The biggest lesson for me is that loyalty is dead. The idea, the concept that a star player should be loyal to a franchise throughout the duration of their career is gone. You know, the whole, the Larry Birds, the Magic Johnsons, that style of play, even Dirk
and Kobe,
like
yeah.
that. We could say MJ, but we'd be sweeping Washington back under the rug. It's dead, and I'm okay with that, because for all the superstar players these franchise gets, they're 1% of the players that come through their doors. The other 99%, they'll quite happily flip, without even thinking twice in a trade. Let's look at Blake Griffin a couple of years ago, where even as an elite player as he is, the Clippers said, we're going to retire your jersey. You're a Clipper for life. And then about 8 months later, he was in Detroit. It's just like, I think the loyalty has to go two ways if you want it to be there. And at the minute, it's dead. These players, they are their own brands. They make more money off the court than on it through shoe deals, etc. These, I'm talking about the top players. Why shouldn't they pick and choose where they want to go? Why can't they do whatever they want to be, the happiest they can in their own situations? They're effectively entrepreneurs.
Yeah. It's a lifestyle decision. Like, not every player that comes into the league and is drafted by the team that they want to go to. Like, so then you're naturally forced into a state of, well, I'll play out my rookie contract and then I might go somewhere else. If you're someone like Kobe Bryant, who was drafted by a team that he'd grown up supporting for his whole life, there's a little bit more of a connection there to stay with your team.
But even he wanted out at a stage.
He did, but then the Lakers were an organization that had the means necessary to go out and acquire someone like Pau Gasol and make the trade, whereas a lot of organizations don't necessarily have the guts to want to go out and do that, which I think now it's all been flipped on its head. I think what we've seen certainly with Masai Ujiri the last year is that teams are just going for it now. The Lakers are, with the trade for AD, are going for it. They're going for a title in the next 2 to 3 seasons with Anthony Davis and LeBron, and hoping that the health and everything holds that together. And the Clippers are doing exactly the same thing here, because by itself, Paul George does not warrant the next half a decade of your franchise's future. Like, he with the injuries problems he's been having, I know he had a great MVP run for the first half of last year's campaign, but that fell off a cliff towards the end of the season. And then when he tore his shoulder. Yeah. And you can't hold it all against him, but he has had injuries the last 3 or 4 years, and they have caused problems for him. So you're kind of banking on now, and it's the same for the Clippers. Are just, there's a 3-year window here where I think they will need to capitalize. And right now I'm not really surprised they're going as the favorites, but it's kind of difficult to pick a favorites for the NBA at the moment. Certainly the hardest decision I think we'll end up making when we do our season guides and bits and bobs is, who do we pick? And it might be the first time in a long while where we've all got different picks, which actually makes a nice change, because the last couple of seasons it's kind of been everyone's picked the Warriors or mistakenly picked the Celtics or something. So
and didn't we all look clairvoyant when Toronto won it?
Hey, but that wasn't. You can't just blame us for being like,
No, I know.
Casual fans. All of the main media outlets did that as well. So
yeah, we probably ought to take a minute as well and just quickly pour one out for the Indiana Pacers, who theoretically took Paul George and Kawhi Leonard in back-to-back years. Unfortunately,
traded him away for George Hill. Well, they had a couple of Eastern Conference Finals runs, didn't they?
Yeah. I guess the glorious Roy Hibbert days. It's going to be a hell of a season again. It's just ramped it up. We've barely even. I swear the Larry O'Brien probably still smells of champagne.
Yeah,
it's been that soon.
Pascal Siakam's still not showered.
and we've still got months to go, and I don't know what I'm going to do for the next few months, just sort of waiting for this all to tip off. And
you just don't get great. A break, Mike. You're not allowed a break.
No, well, yeah, that's true. We seem to be busier the past couple of weeks than we have been in months, which is awesome.
But it's also unique to the NBA, and that's what's so fantastic about the whole free agency period. Like, we've had some questions from sort of newer fans about, what is free agency stuff, and like the case of now at the moment where you've got players choosing their futures effectively. It's just basically what we all do in our working lives. We all make decisions for ourselves at the end of the day. We're not like tied into loyalty of companies and things like that. It's all about what you do with your decision, and the players are now taking up the sort of same mantle, and it's a huge contrast to what you get in sort of football in this country or in Spain or Germany or anywhere else in Europe. Like, the clubs are bigger than the players. Like, there is very rarely a player bigger than the football club. Like, Lionel Messi, one of the best in the world, plays for Barcelona. Barcelona are still bigger than Lionel Messi. It's the history and everything that comes behind them. Whereas the NBA now, it's all been turned on its head. Like, the players are so much bigger than the teams that they play for. LeBron's got more followers than the entire, the NBA has on Twitter. It's just, it's flipping crazy, because he's beyond an athlete now. He is, just general cultural phenomenon. And a lot of other guys are getting like that as well now. Like, there's people who I know who have no idea about the NBA, yet they can tell you who Damian Lillard is because of that famous meme that he, brilliantly managed to capture during the
looking up amongst the crowd of Blazers,
versus the Thunder.
They know his name from that.
They will know Damian Lillard, and they know Russell Westbrook from memes and bits and bobs, like, just because that it's common culture now. Like,
madness.
Gone are the days where you're using a VHS and catching up on the
golden era.
Dial-up download or whatever,
golden era.
Because it's instantaneous, isn't it? Like, that highlight is there. Like, we wake up at 7-8 o'clock in the morning, go to work during the regular season, and all the highlights are already on our phone.
Yeah,
whether that be on YouTube or on League Pass or whatever. And it's just that the NBA is now 365, 24/7, and it's right there at your fingertips, whereas it never used to be. And even now, like, we go on about it in our Slack chat, don't we, about hiding offline and not using the internet because we don't want to know the scores in the finals and things.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. I wonder how this whole instantaneous society has benefited the game. Certainly, like, when I grew up, I'm waiting for the joke from you, but you mentioned VHSs. I used to put them onto long play and go and record them at my grand's because she had cable and we had access to X many games. And then we used to have something called Pontel, which later moved on to DVDs as well. And we used to sort of trade them. So you'd watch it and then you'd trade it on for another one and things. And it was like, it became like, I don't know, I say golden era, like the effort you had to go to be a fan there, I think probably embedded the sport in me more. But I obviously can't speak now because for people growing up now, because they've got it all the time anyway, and so have I, and I love it still. But I don't know. For me, it's just it's bizarre seeing these two different, instantly accessible world, and then the having to, obviously I would have gone and visited my gran for other reasons than recording the NBA, but that was definitely a big draw.
Yeah, League Pass has sort of changed the game in that respect, because it's just there for us, and that didn't really become something that was reliable until about 2008-9. I seem to recall, like broadband speeds and just the general way the app worked wasn't anywhere near good enough until recently. And even now, people still kick off and complain about it. But like,
even now, when you download a particular game and it plays backwards or something, and you
sounds out of sync or something.
Yeah, or it's got the wrong teams and it puts up the other team's scores during fun times. But
the worst thing is when you turn scores off and you log in and it forgets.
The positives far outweigh the negatives.
They do, and you have, like you were saying, but when you were using VHS and stuff, like, you were really engrossed in the game. And I still find that now, like, NBA fans in the UK especially, like, they are either casual fans or they're like proper, they're into it, like that's all they care about. And it's nice to have a balance, whereas other sports don't necessarily have that. But anyway, just general thoughts on the Clippers. I mean, they gave up their entire future for this. Is it worth it? Absolutely.
How else are they going to get two guys of that caliber? You just had a guy who single-handedly took Toronto to a title.
Yeah.
He could well be, providing this medical issue is successfully managed again, he could well be the best player in the league that we see next year. And I think that you look at the haul, the ransom, the King's ransom they paid out for Paul George. You can't look at it as just being solely for Paul George. That if they hadn't have done that, they wouldn't have got Kawhi. And if you look at it as those two players for that amount of picks and players, you do it. You have to do it. I mean, they still kept some of their picks because you can't trade consecutive pick years. So the alternate years they've got, they're not their own picks they're trading. They're other people. So they have still got some picks. But that 2026 one looks really, could be a big one for them, because we're looking at, Paul George is 29. So by that point, his contract will have ended and he'll be like 34, 35. So that could be when the Clippers start to sink again. Oh, look, there you go. Boating reference, Clippers sinking. But you do it every single time to get that, and instantly the forum, the Lakers Clippers rivalry is going to be one of the best in the NBA. Yeah, and it's going to be a race to see who can put more banners up in the next 3 or 4 years. It's going to be an interesting one. But I think, like, on paper, defensively, they now automatically just become the scariest thing on the court. Like, Patrick Beverley, Kawhi Leonard playing next to each other. Harkless is in there. He's a really good two-way player. Paul George and Leonard, as they are, like, we haven't mentioned it, but they're both elite two-way players. Kawhi's offensive game is eerily similar to Michael Jordan's. Paul George can just go off on any night when he feels like it sometimes. And, for large stretches of last season over in Oklahoma, he was the better player. Like, that was his team. And I think this deal completely sideswiped the organization. I don't think they expected this at all, but it's really interesting because I saw a video on Facebook earlier where Paul George was asked about Leonard earlier on in the season, and he was just saying, "Oh, I hung out with him in the summer and we trained and stuff." And it's almost like, well, hang on, has this been something that's probably been discussed before now? This would have been discussed many times. If they're working out in the summer, they'll be having these conversations. Why did KD arrive in Golden State? Well, it's because he and Draymond spoke about it on Team USA. Yeah, it's madness. Well, Bobby Portis was saying that a lot of the players around the league have known where Durant and Kyrie were going. Like, for most of the second half of the season, a lot of players knew. What? Knew that they were teaming up, or knew they knew they were going to Brooklyn? No, get out. Or is this just Bobby in New York, jumping on the media wagon? Yeah, well, maybe he's he's trying to make it sound so much. Yeah, maybe he's trying to just taper the message slightly that they, by saying you never had a chance at KD and Kyrie, so please don't get impatient with me for being, effectively sloppy seconds. But yeah, how do you think that Kawhi and Paul George are going to coexist? Because they're both really high usage guys. Kawhi Leonard at 30.5, Paul George 29% in terms of usage rates. They're not passers. No, but I think Paul George is a very, very good complementary wing player. He's happy to be a sort of secondary guy. Like, we did see it during stretches last season when Russ took over and, George just stood in the corners and made threes. And
I think that's why this works, because you've got Kawhi, who is arguably the best alpha in the league at the moment. And then you've got George out there on the wing. Zubac is a really nice young piece. He's a pretty good, he's an underrated interior defender. Patrick Beverley's just going to be a dog on the perimeter. If him and Kawhi are there in the backcourt, that's going to be nasty. Harkless just fits in there. He can stretch the floor when they need him to. And then Doc Rivers has just built this whole new culture around his vision, and he's a defense first guy. And I think Tom Thibodeau came out after the trade was made and was like, what we're about to see is going to be frightening. There are going to be some nights where teams are really going to struggle to score against the lineups that they can now throw at you, because they've just got a nice mix of athleticism coming off the bench. Lou Williams is coming off the bench, for Christ's sake, and he can light it up and score 26 on you within minutes. Montrezl Harrell as well. Those two, their pick and roll last year was unbelievable, one of the most efficient in the entire league, and we saw them almost tear the Golden State Warriors' big wall down during the first round of the playoffs. So I think they're stacked, and I don't think they're done. I think they'll keep looking around, and that's the thing with this free agency. This trade has now blown it open, and Kawhi's decision in general has blown it open, because we'll get onto it in a minute, or later. Toronto have got decisions to make, and Oklahoma have got decisions to make, and there's some really good players on those two franchises that could really, help out some other teams around the league. And with the association as wide open as it now is, I think teams are going to be going for it and just trying to get those players.
I think that's a fair point. You mentioned earlier culture. How about this for culture then? The Clippers, obviously Jerry West has come in there, had a huge effect on things. But
Steve Ballmer as well, let's not forget.
Yeah, Steve Ballmer, he's winning, so it starts top down anyway. So they've been reborn since new ownership's taken over. Jerry West has just turned everything into gold that he's been involved in, going back to his Lakers days. We've you could speak about that for hours. But for me, Doc Rivers, a guy who didn't want to rebuild in Boston, goes to the Clippers, is heading up a team that underachieved and became sort of the pain in the arse of the league with all their moaning to refs. He was asked to step back from being the GM as well. He did, fair play to the guy. Not only did he step back from being the GM, he then sort of reinvigorated his efforts as a coach, and put together a great team that ended up starting 2 rookies in the playoffs. What Doc Rivers has done massively has redeemed him as an NBA sort of not only coach but personality and figurehead for me, because he's put the team ahead of himself and his individual goals, and the reward is you go and you have a great team that then goes out and picks up 2 superstars. And I just think we can't lose sight of things like that, the way that this team have enabled themselves to develop and put together a culture. And like you said earlier, it just smacks of the way that players are sort of looking at franchises now, that the teams without those cultures are the teams that are missing out, when historically they would have got those players.
Yeah, and Doc was always, certainly during his Boston days, a very player-friendly personality. He did a lot of, stuff in the locker room to get those guys to play well together, and they had that famous Ubuntu sort of chant that was something that they got on a tour to Italy, I believe. I maybe remember that wrong.
It was definitely a Euro tour.
It was definitely a tour of Europe, and for a while anyway, Doc Rivers was kind of just leaning on that aura he got from the 2008 title in Boston and the title challenges again in 2010. When he went to the Clippers, he was obviously handed the reins of that franchise and just given everything, basically. It was obviously too much for him. So yeah, you've got to credit him for stepping back. And the fact that Steve Ballmer's come in and hasn't just sat there and gone, right, well, I'm going to move the franchise to Seattle or something, which he could have quite easily done. They're now in LA, they've bedded themselves in. They've built a really nice, their branding is fantastic. They're completely rejuvenated themselves, made themselves a 21st century NBA team, just like the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets rebranded, ended up renaming themselves, and they are the epitome of what it means to be a 21st century sports team. And they've put a huge emphasis on the way they market themselves to younger people, and it's worked, and now they're going to be a big thing in New York to compete with the Knicks. And like having the history and the heritage doesn't necessarily matter anymore, especially if you're, there's so much dysfunction in your locker room. But I mean, speaking of the dysfunction, quickly we get onto the Lakers. Not wanting to play with LeBron James, is that a thing, or are we reading a bit too much into that? Because certainly the last few years, it seems that there's been players, sort of younger players, avoiding playing with LeBron James. Do you read too much into that, or?
Yes and no, which is really decisive.
Get off the fence, as you told me last week.
Yeah, no, I kind of get it. These guys are all alphas. They all want to be top of the pecking order, but at the same time, they're always teaming up, which is why we've got Kawhi and Paul George and KD and Kyrie.
LeBron's a different generation, though, isn't he? Really, I guess.
Well, yeah. Well, that's what I think they're looking at. They're looking at his age and their age. He's a good 7 years older than a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
They're looking at, growing as players and building a team. They can't be doing that, like carrying around an aging LeBron, who, as great as he is, had his first major injury last year when he did his groin, returned too soon, wasn't quite the same guy. Full off season of rest, then hopefully he'll be back at the same level. But he's getting to that age now where, and I know because we're the same age, things start to creak. And he puts his body through a lot more strain than I do. But he's at that age now where injuries take longer to come back from. You think I can post him up?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he might have me in height, weight, athleticism, and everything else. I might struggle. I might blow in his ear though, and then try something and see if that works.
You just don't want to get in the way of Zion Williamson. That's all I know.
Oh no! Oh man! Did you see him rip the ball off Kevin Knox?
I did.
Oh my gosh!
He just goes crumbling down.
Yeah.
The most embarrassing moment of his career so far.
It was at that point, I think, the Knicks suddenly gave up on him. Oh wow! Yeah, that was an interesting debut, shall we say, from Zion. I don't know how much of it you saw, but he had four dunks, 4 of 9 shooting, I believe, 3 of 6 from the free throw line for 11 points. His dunks were just disgusting.
Yeah, I saw glimpses of it, but I'm still a bit worried that a guy who's that big I think the injury problems might just start stacking up, especially with the 82 game run in of the NBA regular season and the constant damage he's going to get every night, because they're really going to go at him, some of these teams, especially some of these bigger, some of these older guys who are going to think, well, who the hell are you?
Yeah. But it's I kind of, you look at someone like Blake Griffin, who obviously didn't have the same level of the same amount of weight on him, and how he's had to refine his game because he was just a dunker, and the result of being just a dunker is that knees and quads and lower sort of body parts just don't stand up to it in the NBA. And he's now, look at him now. I think we had was it Huey wrote an article, or Josh a few months back, about how he's evolved his game, because he's now stepping outside and hitting threes, and he's under the rim a lot more, and that's protecting his body the same way Vince did as well. Yeah. I wonder how long Zion is going to be a highlight reel for, and how that's good. Like, I mean, this guy's built differently. We've never seen someone this size, that athletic. I'm just, and I'm sure the Pelicans are too. I'm just, touch wood, he stays healthy.
Yeah, no, he is a freak. And the Summer League's been interesting, actually, because we've obviously got Cavill Bigby Williams over there as well.
Yeah.
A Brit, plying his trade for the Pelicans as well. He's had a couple of double-doubles already over there in Summer League. So, and I think he's been signed by the Pelicans as well, which is I think
Cavill Bigby Williams is on a, he's not on a full contract. He's just on the Summer League. It's got a weird name to it, but it means he can earn between 5 and 50K or something like that, for not bad for effectively 10 days work.
No, and it's just good to see British guys out there playing as well. Like, just get
Ben Lawson. Ben Lawson's with the Grizzlies, so that could be, another Brit out there.
Yeah, they are trying.
Yeah, Luke Nelson a couple of years ago.
Yeah, Luke Nelson had interviews with the Clippers, not the Clippers, the Lakers, and
yeah, he played Summer League for the Clippers.
Right.
Random tangent.
Yeah, we're getting really bogged down on Kawhi Leonard, which I said we wouldn't do. So the Lakers, I mean, can they pass the chemistry test? That's the question we've got to to discuss quickly now. They've signed Danny Green, who's 32 years old, to a 2-year deal worth $30 million, which is ridiculous. I can't keep a straight face saying that. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's returned on a 2-year deal as well, $60 million. JaVale McGee, Quinn Cook, Alex Caruso, Rajon Rondo is back again. He's actually teaming up with DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis, so the Pelicans are back in town.
The Blazers sweeping Pelicans.
Yeah. That's a bad omen if ever there was one. And Troy Daniels, which I quite liked. And then later on early on today, Avery Bradley's committed to a 2-year $9.7 million deal with them, which I think is nice. But if the Lakers are thinking that he's going to start defending starting point guards, they've got another thing coming to him. He's a good player. He can play both defense and offense, but I think his days as a starting player are long gone. But we're also seeing rumours now that LeBron's going to start at point, which is intriguing to say the least.
I love that. Chris Haynes is reporting it. I love the concept of him playing point guard. He's easily the best passer on this team. I don't care what you say about Rondo. A lot of his assists. I don't know where they get creativity from
Rondo and LeBron. That's it.
Well, exactly. And so LeBron starting at the 1 is perfect. I'm trying to think what the rest of the lineup would be. Obviously, you're going to have Danny Green in the backcourt with him, you'd expect, which is great. Off the ball player, a great lockdown defender. Don't know who's going to be guarding the quick guys playing the point though. Maybe Danny Green, but I'm not convinced he's built for that. Maybe they'll start playing zone. I'd love it if they just exclusively went zone. DeMarcus Cousins, obviously, AD. Who's going to slot into that now vacant 3 spot, do you reckon?
Kuzma.
You reckon? Okay, yeah, no, that's fair. I'm looking at the roster and I'm just seeing.
I think they'll run there with Kuzma. I think AD will play the 4 because it's preferred position, and then probably DeMarcus Cousins or JaVale at the 5. I'd probably favour JaVale, just considering
the injuries,
how washed Boogie looked last year. But
just leave the guy alone, man. he came back from a
if he comes back and he
Achilles.
if he plays like he was playing when he was last with Andy Davis, then the Lakers are going to be laughing.
Yeah, he's not going to be that level, but
no,
he's not. Don't expect the Warriors version. Like, it takes at least 2 years, and he tore his quad in the playoffs and got back up and got back in the finals. He had some good moments. They were significantly outweighed by bad moments, but still, and in terms of chemistry,
some of these guys were here last year. It didn't go too well. There was still quite a bit of fallout between the young guys and the old guys. A lot of the young guys are gone now, but
I like the fact they put McGee, Rondo, and Lance Stevenson all on a team and said these guys will figure it out, and then they get rid of Stevenson and bring in DeMarcus Cousins. that's just madness.
But and Jared Dudley, who is not exactly a quiet guy.
Well, no, exactly, but he is a calming locker room presence. Is how I would like to describe it. You've got to remember, they've replaced Luke Walton with Frank Vogel. I say you've got to remember, obviously you know this. Who I think is a much more headstrong coach, and he's defensive orientated. What's going to be interesting to me is they brought Vogel in to just shore up the defense, and I think the offense.
This team is terrible defensively.
Exactly. So then you bring in it, but defense is not something that it's an effort thing.
Yeah, it is. And that's exactly why I was preaching that they go out and get Patrick Beverley and JaMychal Green and guys like that.
Guys like that would be amazing, but
now they're the Clippers.
But I think Vogel will still have a positive impact on them defensively. And offensively, they've got a guy with a photographic memory in LeBron who can recount every play as it goes through and describe it to you in ridiculous detail. Offensively, they're fine. They can just
the AD LeBron pick and roll is going to be
disgusting.
A+ every night.
So there is a lot of egos to juggle there, more than there ever was in Cleveland.
There's also a couple of guys in there who are just going to get on with it. Danny Green, Jared Dudley, Alex Caruso, they're just going to get on with it. Quinn Cook, I think, is just going to get on with it.
I think that's an underrated pickup, actually, as well.
Quinn Cook's a nice guy because he can create his own offense as well, which we saw for the Warriors in the finals when they needed it desperately. He was a bit of a spark for them. Yeah, I'm a bit worried about where this team goes defensively. It's going to rely on LeBron to actually play defense, which he didn't really want to do last season.
But they've got AD too.
Yeah,
he's like an elite defender.
They need AD to just go completely, supernova. Like it has to be the Anthony Davis that everyone has talked up for the last few years. He can't come in and not be the superstar that the Lakers need him to be, because I think he's going to have to take a lot of the load to make sure that LeBron's.
I think we're going to see
rested.
improvements from him defensively, because he's going to need to step up on that end of the floor because he's next to JaVale McGee, who, to be fair to him, still gets a significant amount of blocks and rebounds, blah, 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 but isn't the best at switching or anything like that. But offensively, AD's never going to have had it so easy. He's never played with a superstar. Like, you can say the experiment with Cousins is not the same. But he's never had a guy like LeBron who takes so much of the defense's attention. He's just going to be, he's going to get such easy shots.
Yeah, and I think having Rondo coming back as well is actually going to help, because those three, when they were in New Orleans together, there was some chemistry there. Like, they could actually play really well together. So I think we're going to get that. And Rondo is one of those guys who, before you know it, he's thrown up 15, 16 assists. He might have missed every shot he's taken, but that's besides the point. That's besides the point with Rajon Rondo. He's been doing that for the last 10 years. Like, we're used to it by now. But I think it's a very interesting team. Obviously, with any Lakers team, there will be fallout, and be curious to see who you'd put your money on as the first person to have a public fallout. Before we go on to our ad read.
Jared Dudley doesn't take any expletive.
No, he doesn't, does he?
So I think he'll have something to say with something McGee or Rondo does. So yeah, that's my call.
I'm going to just go with probably Boogie or Caldwell Pope. I think one of them will just end up, something will snap. They'll get the blame for everything, because there's going to be some scapegoats on this team this year when it doesn't start off perfectly.
Hang on, you can't call Boogie. Boogie just is always upset.
So don't call him a crybaby.
No. Well, you can if you want, but you can't do it to win the bet.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. We'll be back after our quick ad break. So let's take a quick break to talk about our friends at NBAstore.eu, Europe's official online NBA store. We've teamed up with them, much like Kawhi has teamed up with Paul George, to bring you a landscape-shifting deal. Our listeners get 15% off orders with the code DCPOD15.
Get your Kawhi Clippers jersey, or your KD7 jersey, or your Zion Pels jersey right now. Just remember DCPOD15 at checkout. Offer excludes clearance and outlet items, but for whatever you need, NBAstore.eu has you covered like the new look Clippers defense. Head to NBAstore.eu now and use the code DCPOD15.
What on earth is KD7 all about? Anyway, back to the show. So, welcome back. We filled the first half of the show with a lot of talk about Los Angeles, which we haven't done in a while, so I think we'll have to forgive ourselves for that one, where we might. Yeah, well, you can forgive yourself. I'm not. I'm upset we spent so long talking. No, I'm not. I don't care. It's basketball. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to do another 45 minutes on them. No, because I think there's far more interesting things to be talking about. Like what the Toronto Raptors do now. Really nice young core at the moment to build around, but there's certainly some expiring assets on that team. Kyle Lowry's been circulating trade rumors for a long time now. Marc Gasol's obviously someone that they could potentially move before the trade deadline. They've just re-signed 3-time NBA champion Patrick McCaw. Sorry, I had to get that in there.
I love it.
Which is a nice get up for them. But the Raptors, they've got some serious questions to ask going forward.
Yeah, I mean, how do you replace
Kawhi Leonard?
Yeah, a guy who's elite on both ends of the floor and just dragged you over the line,
kicking and screaming to an NBA Finals.
Yeah. You can't. He's irreplaceable. No Stanley Johnson or Rondé Hollis Jefferson is going to do that.
I like the pickups though.
Yeah, the pickups themselves are good. What we need to remember really is that they're going to be a great regular season team again, because I say great, just maybe not as good as last year. I mean, we saw how good they were when Kawhi was being load managed and resting games. They actually had a better record than he did when he was playing. So take from that what you will. But they did sacrifice some depth in the trade for Marc Gasol and you just got, it kind of balances out. They're going to be a good regular season team. And then we'll see them disappear quite early in the playoffs, I expect.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. We've obviously got OG Anunoby's hopefully going to come back and be fully healthy. Norman Powell had a really good year this year, but there's a lot of wings on that roster. I think they're going to need to go out and find, they need a true replacement for Kawhi Leonard, and whether OG can step up and do that, I don't know. Norman Powell certainly can't do it.
It's interesting because OG was as he came into the league, he was compared as to being like Kawhi in terms of his, not only his defense and persona, but his ability or the room to grow on offense the way Kawhi did when he came into the league. I think OG's got something to prove. He'll be gutted he didn't contribute more this year.
Missing out on the playoffs run.
Yes, exactly.
Guttering,
I didn't want to say contribute at all, but he did miss the entire playoffs, which must be devastating, really, for a guy who's came into the league recovering from an ACL injury, and then he has in his second year an appendectomy. But this is a guy who 2 years ago was defending LeBron James in the conference finals. So
doing a good job as well.
Exactly. Like I say, they won't be as great a team. They'll still be a good regular season team.
Yeah, he's an interesting character though, because you obviously interviewed him right before he entered the league, and even from that pod, you could just tell like he has goals and aspirations as to what he wants to achieve in the NBA. And I think now, and certainly last season, I did an article on him earlier on in the year, and like he had to have a bit of a position swap. He went from playing the small forward position to power forward purely because Kawhi came in and slotted into that three for a lot of games last season. And he absolutely thrived there. Like that, he was just getting in the passing lanes and causing all kinds of havoc. His steals went up, his assists went up, his rebounds went up. Like he was really thriving there. And it'll be interesting to see how that now works with obviously Pascal Siakam and Serge Ibaka sort of taking it in turns to take that spot. I assume OG is just going to go straight into the three during the regular season, unless Stanley Johnson's coming in there and taking that spot. I think Nick Nurse is going to be a bit of a rotation guy this year. He's going to use that depth and just try and work themselves through the regular season. But like as it stands at the moment, I mean, losing Kawhi is obviously massive. Like how far does it actually drop them in the Eastern Conference standings when you look around and look at the moves that everybody else has made, or that, like the Pacers made a lot of moves. They're going to be really good next season. Boston adding Kemba Walker, I think, is awfully underrated. Not enough sort of headlines being made about that.
But does that put them ahead of losing Al Horford?
Well, that's the thing.
I think Boston have taken a very small step back. But hopefully it can be addition by subtraction of Kyrie.
I think that's more of a case of Kemba comes in and it will mean Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum will just automatically play better, because from what we gather, they just didn't get on with Kyrie at all.
So the Raptors were the second seed this year behind the Bucks. We've got to expect that the Bucks will be one of the top teams again. Philly have obviously just reloaded massively.
How big a deal is it losing Malcolm Brogdon?
Huge, actually. I think it's not spoken about enough. A guy in the 50-40-90 club who's efficient, who is intelligent on the court, who can spread the floor, read the plays. Incredibly underrated player. I'm surprised they didn't do more to get him, and instead of doing things like signing Giannis's older brother, which is just I get that's whatsoever. I get it. It's a long-term play to get Giannis to re-sign there.
Yeah,
when his contract's up, but I just look at it and go, but come on now, there must be a point where, as much as his family means to him, it might take away from his chances of a championship if you're putting that salary to his brother and not to someone who is better, for want of a better phrase.
The East is in a really weird position, and we'll get onto it on another show. Yeah. But like, it's just like we talk about the NBA being wide open, but the East right now is just a whole different kettle of fish. Like, I don't think I could pick my Eastern Conference finalists like at the moment.
Well, I'm going to make you go on pick.
What?
No. Right now on paper, I'm going
Philly and Indiana.
Really? Okay, I was going to go Philly and Bucks.
I don't think the Bucks have done that much to push the needle from. I mean, I like Rolo, but I don't think he's going to make that much of a difference.
That's fine, but I think you're heavily underestimating just how great Giannis is.
I think you're underestimating the Indiana Pacers.
I always underestimate the Indiana Pacers. They've had some great moves. It would not be a Double Clutch
podcast without underestimating the Indiana Pacers.
Yeah, they've made some great moves. They're definitely vying to be up there near the top of the conference, but I don't know whether that's going to be higher than third or fourth.
Anyway, we were talking about the general East, and that's a bit too much. So moving on, the earthquake that has shaken the foundations of the league has obviously meant that the Toronto Raptors and Oklahoma City Thunder are now considering what to do for the future. The Thunder made a move earlier on, which is sending Jeremy Grant over to the Denver Nuggets and sending back their 6th future first-round pick of the past week, which is insane. It's also saving them $39 million in cap and luxury tax, which is something that I know that they've been very adverse to over the years. James Harden, cough. So now you've got two teams that obviously because of Kawhi's decision and Paul George's escape to Los Angeles, you've got two teams that have kind of thrown up in the air, like they don't really know what to do. Sam Presti's obviously made the right decision and gone out and got as many assets as he could, but they're still trying to shift Steven Adams. Russell Westbrook's the big name floating around. Toronto, Kyle Lowry's floating around. I mean, is there anyone that immediately sticks out to you? Like, obviously, Knicks fans seem to really want Russell Westbrook, which makes no sense because they're actually doing a smart thing at the moment and signing a lot of guys to 2-year deals, which then means they're going to be players again in 2021 when guys like Giannis and Bradley Beal are free agents.
Mm-hmm. In terms of places where Westbrook would land, if I'm a GM, I'm looking at his contract over the
Having
next
a heart attack.
the next 4 years, 38, 41, 44, 46.5 million. The last one's a player option.
Cool.
I'm not turning down that as a 35-year-old guy who can't do anything except rely on athleticism, which by that point probably won't be there.
Yeah.
Not only that, he has a 15% trade kicker. AD waived his 5% one. Are you waiving 15% of that? Mad. Absolute madness. But I think it would be great to watch him on the same team as Jimmy Butler in Miami.
Oh, that's spicy.
They have it would be spicy. It would either be the two of them strangling each other or the two of them just strangling the other team. It would be amazing to watch.
Well, that's what you do. You get them drunk in South Beach the night before, and then you just, beat him to death on the court the next night.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean,
Pat
Miami
Riley,
have the assets
to
to do it, to be fair. But I don't
Phoenix
know.
Suns. Sorry, wait, they just signed Ricky Rubio.
Yeah, I was going to say they can't
disaster.
trade Rubio till November.
Well, what were they doing?
Oh, no, wait, no, they can, because he's not a free agent. No, he is. Oh, no, I'm totally confused. How did they get Rubio? I know they've got him.
Where did they get him? They signed him.
As a free agent?
Yeah.
That's what I couldn't remember. They
lost
trade
out
him
on D'Angelo Russell and signed Ricky Rubio for some crazy reason.
You're
which
right.
makes no
For some
sense.
reason in my head, I was like, there was a trade. No, it wasn't a trade. So they can't.
Too many trades.
Too many trades and too many signings. So they can't trade him till November anyway. Rubio, and I can't see Rubio and West. That would be horrific to watch. One guy with the ball refusing to pass and shoot ill-advised threes. Another guy off the ball, can't pass because he hasn't got the ball and can't shoot threes. That would be horrific. I don't know. Westbrook is a conundrum. If you want him on your team and you're willing to pay that money, what is your team's goal?
Yeah, it's the sacrifice because you have to effectively hand the reins over to him as well because that's all he's ever really known. Well, certainly the last few years anyway, but even when Durant was there, it was like he kind of wanted the limelight all the time.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, he's questionable decision making. In terms of efficiency last year, it fell through the floor. It's it's a difficult one for the Thunder to try and get out of. I mean, he's still a good player. Don't get me wrong. He's like a very good player. But is he...
I guess you have to move into an organisation that's been desperate for a point guard for a long, long time. Say the Orlando Magic.
Yeah,
that's the only team that I could see that would even be willing to risk it. But they seem to be. They've got this obsession at the moment where they've got cap space, but they're just stockpiling bigs for no apparent reason.
But why would Russell want to go there? Because we're on first name terms now. I've just slandered him. Get out. Get out. Is he a Harry Potter fan? Is that even Disney? It's not even Disney, is it? That's Universal.
Is he a Star Wars fan?
Anyway, that's beside the point. His agent and the Thunder and he are apparently talking about moving him to a contender.
Minnesota.
I don't think there's a single contender that would want him for the cost it would incur to, in terms of bodies going the other way.
Sam Presti's going to rob you.
Exactly. If you want to end up in Orlando, that's not a contender. We might as well stay with the Thunder, where you've got Gallinari and where you've got Steven Adams. That's a pretty decent three right there.
It is, but Gallows, like we said earlier, you can't rely on his health, and Steven Adams is a throwback in an age where everyone else is shooting threes.
What, you mean like Vucevic?
Yeah,
Vucevic steps out a little bit, but not like he's not one of these sort of versatile bigs. Don't give me that. I'll not buying it.
Hey, Steven Adams has not even tried to change the game.
Doesn't need to. He just eats meat. It's fine.
Oh my God. I knew you'd reference that commercial. Somehow you referenced that commercial. What about the Washington Wizards? I just yelled it in the background then, but...
What about them?
John Wall.
What you're on about
Russ
trading
John Wall.
For,
let's do it.
Okay. So in theory, that could work.
Because Wall's injured
the money
anyway.
would work. Yeah,
the
exactly.
Works.
So you then essentially get this year as a bottom dweller, and then I get your own high pick plus however many picks you've accrued from.
And you get Westbrook and Beal in Washington.
Whether that works
or not, I don't know. But
money wise, it would be close because they're both on. I'll call them super maxes, but based on the players involved, they're stupid maxes.
Yeah. I mean, one of the other questions I was going to ask you was just like which team in general this free agency so far has been pretty clueless, and the Wizards are actually one of the ones that I wanted to just throw up in there. I mean, they lost Otto Porter, they lost Kelly Oubre, they lost Thomas Satoransky, really, good young point guard for basically nothing. Like, they have no assets to show for any of those guys. All three of those players are good players, good role players who can contribute to the teams that they are now on. If you trade for Russell Westbrook and you run it up with Bradley Beal, Thomas Bryant re-signed as well, which I think is a nice deal. Like, Thomas Bryant, if you don't go out and get someone like Russell Westbrook, doesn't make any sense because he's completely he's the guy you want to get if you're trying to like make a move in the next couple of years. Whereas it's just the Wizards in general. Like I don't think this organization, and we talked about dysfunction earlier on, like where's the direction for them?
They haven't got a GM at the minute.
No. And I think if Russ comes in there, then he's instantly like the star attraction of the night. Beal's probably a really good guy to play off him. I like that backcourt. Russ gets to play out the remaining years of his salary in a big market, which is desperate for a guy who's that entertaining. Because John Wall, when he wasn't hurt or tripping over things, was a guy they wanted to watch, but. And that could be them trying to take advantage of the East and the sort of the unknown nature that we were discussing a minute ago as to we don't really know who's who in the Eastern Conference at the moment besides Philly and Milwaukee.
Yeah, the Wizards off season has been terrible. They've swung and missed on retaining their own players. I think the Bulls picking up Satoransky is an underrated pickup. I think he's better than people give him credit for. He seems like a kind of guy who, an effort and hustle kind of guy, which you want every time. They are a terrible, terrible franchise. Yeah,
and they had some, like the players we mentioned, like Kelly Oubre Jr., promise. Young guy, promising, traded for Trevor Ariza. Well, he left and joined the Kings.
Otto Porter
Jr. He was traded for
Jabari
Parker and Bobby Portis, and they're both gone now.
Yep.
Like there's literally that you have no reward for this. I mean, that's why bringing Thomas Bryant back is probably a good thing. Like, he's a good player. I know when Josh
beating Thomas
Buzzer
Bryant,
game winner in London. When Josh spoke to him, he spoke very highly of him. Seems like a general nice young lad as well. But does he really fit on that timeline with everyone else? Is kind of what I was getting onto. But it depends on where they go this summer. Like, they have to act now, I feel.
They ought to. They can't. I just went into the trade machine and waved my magic fingers. We need to wait for John Wall's new contract to kick in, which it technically hasn't done. So he's still showing us up being on 19 mil.
But they have to do something drastic to get out of their hole, don't they?
Yeah,
and
massively.
A Russell Westbrook trade is drastic.
I get that. That would work. But again, Russell Westbrook is the conversations he's having with the Thunder is about going to a contender, and that is not the Wizards. Obviously, we're talking.
It's certainly not. No,
but I mean, if he wanted like a fresh start, sure, great. But wherever he's going to end up, I don't know who would want to turn such an important role. If they're already a contender, why would you hand over the reins and such an important role to someone who not only demands so much of the ball? I think his usage rate is like 34.5, which is second highest in the league behind Harden at 40 something. And so much of the team's identity. If you're already a contender, you don't need that cornerstone player, surely. So no, please don't. If you are a contender, please don't go and pick up Westbrook, please.
It's really difficult trying to pick where it goes, but yeah. Anyway, I mean, clueless teams is free agency. Is there any that really stick out to you besides the Knicks just coming away completely empty-handed? Like, they were supposed to get Zion, they were supposed to get Durant, they were supposed to get Kyrie, they were supposed to get Kawhi, they were supposed to get Anthony Davis.
I think we need an amnesty, you know, like I said it the other day, that meme from The Simpsons where Homer's, you know, like when he trains to be like a rent-a-crusty, and he goes in and then stop, he's already dead. Let the dead guy, the Hamburglar, in fact, he's Krusty Burglar, I believe he's called, to not infringe copyrights. Is Knicks fans. Just we need to stop. It's dead. It's dead.
For such a bad franchise, it's unbelievable how much everyone talks about them.
Well, yeah, I know. That's because they're New York.
It's crazy. What about the Phoenix Suns then? I mean, they look a little bit rudderless.
I think some of the moves they've made are quite good, and they were the sort of moves they needed to do to improve. Like the acquisition of Rubio, I like that.
Rubio and Booker's fun.
Huh?
Rubio and Booker is fun.
Yeah, exactly. Booker is going to just... He's not going to even believe some of the shots he gets because Rubio can find him and thread a needle. He's not the defensive player he once was, Rubio, but you know he's in Phoenix. He's still better than most of what they've had. I think they started making sensible moves this year that could actually progress this franchise forward. It's just unfortunate that the rest of the division has
stepped up massively.
Yeah, just you know, they Phoenix have just got in the gym whilst the rest of the division are taking human growth hormone or something. It's just
that's a weird analogy, but I'll go with it.
It's just unfortunate the timing of it. I think Phoenix should be positive. It's just like I say, the rest of the division have moved on so much.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the teams that I think has been a bit odd this summer has been the Charlotte Hornets so far. Like, they must have known they weren't going to re-sign Kemba Walker to the Supermax because it effectively hamstrings the franchise.
But yeah, well, they had that conversation beforehand.
But they've still refused to trade him like earlier on in the season.
Well, my understanding was that he was okay with... I say my understanding. My sources say.
Your sources?
No, the reports were saying...
mayo or ketchup? Or we're talking... Oh, no, wait, that's condiment.
So there was talks that he wouldn't get the max, the super max, anyway, way before. And I think he even said himself he wasn't expecting it. But
hasn't he been really underpaid compared to like other point guards? I'm sure I read somewhere that he's one of the most underpaid point guards of the last 15 years or something ridiculous.
Really? That wouldn't surprise me to a degree. But they must have, after when he hit unrestricted free agency, they must have thrown.
Well, because he took less. He signed a year earlier than he should have done and took less money for it.
Oh, he did that on Chestnut.
Yeah.
He did the anti-Jimmy Butler, where they offer you 40 mil when you can wait 6 months and get 80.
Yeah.
What a numpty.
And then the franchise didn't really do anything with it. I think Michael Kidd-Gilchrist turned up and spent most of his time injured.
Oh, bless him.
I know, he looked like he was going to be elite defensively, but...
Yeah, and he looked like he wasn't too... When he first... what were we talking about? 3 years ago, he returned from a torn labrum and he'd been working out with Mark Price as his shooting coach, and all of a sudden he dropped a triple-double and was hitting jump shots, and then he tore another something else and just went back to his weird skew-if, terrible, ugly shot. The Hornets, again, I guess it starts at the top, which pains me to say, but Jordan was a much better player than owner and executive. Oh, wow. Okay. So, yeah, you're right. He was massively underpaid. He took...
could you imagine Russ on that team?
Yeah, he took a 4-year, $48 million deal. Wow.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He took a lot, significantly less than what the market was at the time.
He took the early offer and he should have waited. He'd have got 84.
Yeah.
Oh, sack that agent. That's horrific. His entire career earnings is up to this, before this season was 46, so this season included is 58. His entire career, wow.
That's what I'm sure I saw it somewhere.
Wow, 2.3, 2.5, 2.5, 3.2, 12, 12, 12, 12.
Look at what John Wall's on.
Oh my God. Well, 19 at the minute, but it'll kick up to just nauseating money.
And Kemba has just been like the model player for a franchise since he's entered the league. He's done everything right. He's never had negative press about him. He's always put the franchise on his back. He's, the leading scorer in Hornets history, and he's hit game winner after game winner. He is a very, very good, quiet spoken.
And he's been criticised as well for not being able to shoot from three, and he's improved that.
Him and Damian Lillard last year were arguably the two best deep threats in the league, along with Steph, obviously. But
yeah, I was watching. I was very blessed to be able to watch him work out last summer, and just like the efficiency and professionalism that he works out with is just nuts. And he went on that huge tear at the start of the season.
Yeah.
Charlotte have squandered an opportunity there.
They have.
And Boston have got exactly this is what I hate about Boston's situation, is that if they'd have had Horford now, that team would be scary good. Can you imagine that, instead of Kyrie, they've got the guy with the same positives and none of the negatives?
Yeah, it would. But I think Al was obviously, don't know, there's something going on there that we probably don't know about.
Well, he wants a ring.
We wanted the money.
Yeah, well, yeah. They didn't offer him the money he wanted.
Take the money.
He's hopped over to the rivals.
Yeah, Danny Ainge lowballing people. What a surprise.
There's your loyalty thing right at the top of the show. Any lessons we can learn? Loyalty's dead.
Loyalty is dead. Right, before we go, we're just going to quickly run through the Westgate's Superbooks sports odds from Las Vegas. Now, these are as of July 6th, so they're a couple of days ago now, but at the moment, the favourites to win the NBA title are the Los Angeles Clippers at 3-1. Surprised?
No, not surprised.
Milwaukee Bucks, they're second at 4-1. They're still high up there.
That is quite high.
Yeah, considering what happened in this past postseason.
If Giannis has added a jump shot, a three this summer, then yeah,
it's all over.
Yeah.
Just shut the league down. The Lakers are 6-1. That seems really high. 76ers are 7-1. Not surprised.
It seems a bit low.
Yeah, it does. I at least thought they'd have better odds than the Lakers, but Houston Rockets, they're 10-1. Golden State Warriors 10-1. Both of those teams contenders the last couple of years, now rank outsiders, I think. Houston might still make some moves. I mean, they've been linked with Russ, but this would be a crazy deal if they make it happen.
The thing is, they can't. Russ can't exist off the ball.
No.
And if Harden's usage rate goes down, great. Okay, so he doesn't have to carry as high a load. But that entire team is geared around him having the ball in his hands. I wonder what impact that would have. Certainly, we might not see the tweets about him being, an MVP caliber player each year and being looked over, because he won't get as much of he won't get the stats to sort of back it up, despite him being an MVP caliber player, which is a really long-winded way of me dissing the franchise for making bad comments about Giannis. But
Russ only got an MVP because he broke Oscar's record.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
The Utah Jazz are 12-1. That's sneaky good.
That they should be much higher.
The Denver Nuggets 14-1. That's the best team in the Western Conference last year. And they've added Jeremy Grant. They've added Jeremy Grant.
I like Jeremy Grant as well.
I do as well.
Puts his body on the floor.
Nice fit. The Celtics are down at 20-1. The Blazers at 25-1. The Nets are 30-1, and the Pacers are 40-1. So,
hang on. So the Nets are higher than the Pacers.
Yeah, despite the fact KD's probably not going to play this year.
Excellent. Who's Westgate?
And how are the Celtics higher than the Blazers?
Again, who is Westgate?
They're like one of the biggest sports bookie things in the world. Like, that's just what all the American sites pull that off. I'm not a gambler. I bet on one thing the last year, and it was the Raptors win the championship.
Mad.
I know, crazy. Right, please do follow us on Twitter at DoubleClutchUK. Check out the website, as always, is doubleclutch.uk. We've had some nice new additions recently, haven't we, Mike? I'm going to run out of names, but we've had
Clark Priday.
Pardon?
I hope I said his name right. Clark Priday.
Clark Priday, yeah. Well, Priday? I was going Priday, but who knows? I'm sure he'll correct us.
Yeah.
And Justin Quinn has also joined us recently. Both have put their debut articles up on the website, so go and check them out. We've had a little bit of a refresh of the homepage just to make it easier to find places to download the podcast, because we are now on Google Podcasts, which is apparently, and I may be wrong, only available in the United States of America at the moment. If you want to access it over here, you have to use Google Music, which I believe is a subscription service. But yeah, we're on the Google Podcast Store, which is a thing. I don't know, because I have an iPhone and not an Android, so I can't do any IP fiddling and check. But we are on there, according to Jamie, who is our resident Yankee. Yeah, well, he's not our only resident Yankee now. We've got more of them.
Technically, he is the resident in the States, whereas Dr. Quinn is not. So he is resident in the truest sense.
Mexico City, double clutch going global.
Yep, there you go.
Brooklyn, Mexico City, Kent. Glasgow.
There you go.
We're worldwide.
Worldwide.
Yeah, check out the podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please do leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or whatever platform it is that you listen to. Josh and Hugh have got some WNBA content coming up over the next couple of weeks, and Hugh has been over covering Eurobasket as well, which we haven't actually mentioned, but congratulations to the women's Team GB team, which went over there and finished 4th.
Yeah, I was gutted that they lost to France in the semi. I was absolutely gutted.
Well, Temi was named in the top 5 players of the tournament as well. So
that whole squad, just if UK Sport had anything about them, they should be funding that team. Yeah, they said it before that. They said that they needed to do well at Eurobasket. Well, I'm sorry, but one game within the final, without funding, how much more do you want from these guys? Some incredible talent there. I'd love to see the sport finally get some recognition, but great effort, great representation for the country. I watched the quarterfinal on an iPhone underneath my work PC in the office, sat opposite my boss.
I watched it on LBTV.
Yeah, LBTV through my iPhone.
Oh,
come on, man!
You're fancy with your iPhone.
What do you want about? It was I could have watched it on my iPad, but it wouldn't have fit under my PC screen. And then at the end, I was like, yes, and a fist in the air sort of thing, and got really weird looks around the office. But
what are you doing, Mike? What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. But congratulations. Great for the country, great for the sport.
Yeah, and the women's content that we've done for the WNBA has been so well received on the website and the podcast downloads and everything. Hugh and Josh have done a magnificent job with those shows, and it's guest after guest. And Carly Simonson, who was part of that team, she was on the pod month or two ago now, and we've spoken to Temi in the past. It was about a year ago now, I seem to remember.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, the connections with the women's game are fantastic, and like growing it in this country is something that we're all certainly quite passionate about. And it was, it got the recognition after everyone complained, because like the BBC finally streamed it and stuff, but it took loads of people, harassing them on Twitter and stuff for them to do anything. So
there was a change.org petition, wasn't there, or something like that?
Yeah, there was.
Well, I say something like that. I didn't know if it was change.org. I knew there was a petition because I signed it.
Yeah. But, that was what we shouted out on the last pod. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, Eurobasket was fantastic. Really, really interesting to see. And Hugh was out there covering that, so that was pretty cool. I'm sure we'll get Hugh's thoughts on it another day. But yeah, double clutch going all over the place at the moment.
It's amazing.
It's cool. Right. Is there anything you want to say before we go? Or
I'm pretty sure there was, but I can't remember it.
Oh, well, that helps. I'm not psychic.
No. So I'll put it in the footnotes.
Footnotes. Right. We'll catch you next week, folks. Thank you for listening. Good night.